Welcome. I am Fred Wellman, FP Wellman, if you know me from the internet. Welcome to On Democracy Sunday, the debut show, the pilot. We're making this up as we go. I'm going to warn you. We've been watching the news for a while now. As you guys know, since the election, it's gotten a little hairy. A lot of our friends in the news business have lost a lot of viewers. There's a million reasons for that. But, my kids are older. I got nothing going on Sunday morning. We thought, let's do a Sunday show. So my good friend JJ and I are going to produce this thing. We got an incredible guest. We got great plans. It's going to be a blast. Our goal here isn't just to be serious, because let's be honest, things are kind of dark sometimes these days. A lot of folks who know me know it's tough, but I'll tell you what, we're going to try and keep it fun, loose, talk about important issues, and then go from there and have a good time. We have great guests. I've got a great lineup of mostly friends. Actually, all of them are friends this week, because you got to start out with your friends first. But I'm really lucky because I have really cool friends. So for those of you just joining, again, welcome. If you don't follow On Democracy, we'd love you to follow us, the On Democracy Podcast YouTube channel. That's where you'll get all this stuff. We're going to be adding a lot more content as we go forward. But in the meantime, welcome to On Democracy Sunday. Again, I am Fred Wellman. There's a lot going on. We're going to start with the news each week. The news is a little crazy right now. The biggest thing you may have heard last night, Kashayal Patel was nominated to be, or actually future President Trump said he's going to be the FBI director. Crazy. I mean, look at the picture. Kash Patel, if you know him, this announcement kind of sent a shockwave through a lot of places, including the FBI. Obviously from the start, Robert Ray is nominated to a 7-year term or 10-year term. He's only been there for 7. Traditionally, presidents don't replace them each time. But then again, what's norms and traditions to Donald J. Trump, right? I mean, he doesn't really care. So why should we start now? The thing about Kash Patel is that he's different. A lot of these nominees have been a little bit crazy. We'll talk about them more during the show. But Patel is different. He's got a weird background. But a lot of reason people are shocked is, there's a perfect video that encapsulates why this is such a bizarre choice. Let's run that tape, JJ, of him and Bannon.
Highly confident that when you go back and as a senior member of this administration, President Trump's administration, starting in the afternoon of the 20th of January of 2025, do you feel confident that you will be able to deliver the goods, that we can have serious prosecutions and accountability? And I want the Morning Joe producers that watch us and all the producers that watch us, this is just not rhetoric. We're absolutely dead serious. We're not. You cannot have a constitutional republic and allow what these deep staters have done to the country. The deep state, the administrative state, the fourth branch of government, never mentioned in the Constitution, is going to be taken apart brick by brick. And the people that did these evil deeds will be held accountable and prosecuted, criminal prosecutions. Kash, I know you're probably going to be head of the CIA, but do you believe that you can deliver the goods on this in a pretty short order the first couple of months so we can get rolling on prosecutions?
Yes, we got the bench for it, Bannon, and you know those guys. I'm not going to go out there and say their names right now so the radical left-wing media can terrorize them. But, excuse me, the one thing we learned in the Trump administration the first go-round is we got to put in all-America patriots top to bottom. And we got them for law enforcement. We got them for intel collection. We got them for offensive operations. We got them for DOD, CIA, everywhere. And the one thing we will do that they never will do is we will follow the facts and the law and go to courts of law and correct these justices and lawyers who have been prosecuting these cases based on politics and actually issuing them as lawfare. We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. Yes, we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens, who helped Joe Biden rig presidential elections. We're going to come after you. Whether it's criminally or civilly, we'll figure that out. But yeah, we're putting you all on notice. And Steve, this is why they hate us. This is why we're tyrannical. This is why we're dictators.
Because they are tyrannical and they are dictators. That's some really scary stuff. And that was a few months ago when they thought maybe CIA. A lot of us blew that off because the CIA doesn't have any power officially in the United States. No, they gave him FBI, where he does have the power to arrest people, where he does have the power to use agents to attack their enemies. It's very scary. Now, if you don't know Patel, he spent in the announcement that Trump put out, he actually said that he was a pivotal role in uncovering the Russia hoax and has been advocating that. He served the end of that. If you guys remember, after January 6th, there was a whole rotation of clowns that Trump put in at the end of his administration. Patel was one of those. He had posts in the National Security Council, the Pentagon, before leaving there. Then he got floated to be possibly CIA or FBI under William Barr. Barr literally said at the time and wrote in his memoir later that Patel will become FBI deputy director over his dead body. So I guess he's dead. Look, he's got a long history. He hasn't prosecuted crimes. Colleagues from his days as a prosecutor thought he was terrible. I think he said that one of his supervisors said he wouldn't ever file motions that he knew he would lose. So hasn't prosecuted a lot of cases. He said he spent 3 years as a terrorism prosecutor at the Justice Department. He was never a lead prosecutor. He just fudges it all. He's also the guy that wrote the Nunes memo that was leaked, if you remember. It just goes on and on. Obviously, he has to pass Senate confirmation. He has been supporting a lot of the January 6th terrorists. Obviously, his background doesn't come up to the merit of the legends who have led the FBI. So it comes down to the Senate doing their job if he'll make it that far. Obviously, Matt Gaetz didn't make it that far. There's going to be a lot of lights turned on to Kash Patel because of this. In other news, it just goes on and on. Pete Hegseth's mom. We'll talk about more, but if you didn't hear this week in the New York Times reported, there's Patel, the New York Times reported that Pete Hegseth's mom sent him an email in 2018 during his divorce from his second wife that was pretty long. I'll read from this email that New York Times acquired. On behalf of all the women, I know it's many, you've abused in some way. I say, get some help and take an honest look at yourself. She stated she still loved him, but also wrote, I have no respect for any man that belittles, lies, cheats, sleeps around, and uses women for his own power and ego. You are that man and have been for years. And as your mother, it pains me and embarrasses me to say that. But it is the sad, sad truth. Which is a really rough email to get from your mom, and then have it published by the New York Times, needs to say. The reason they got it was that she also sent it to his wife at the time. She has since recanted her comments and said he's a wonderful boy. Obviously, he's an all-American hero, but this is a lot to deal with. If you know Hegseth's story, he's currently a Fox News, Fox and Friends weekend host. There's been a lot of contention. Obviously, he is a veteran. He did serve in combat. He was in the 101st Airborne like me. He left the military under some mysterious circumstances, went to the reserves. He was actually supposed to be part of the detail for the National Guard that was going to be working for President Biden's inauguration. When it came out that he had tattoos that are often used by white supremacists and others, he was actually pulled from that detail. So there's a lot of questions about that I sure will come out in his confirmation hearings. Even more disturbing, he was accused of a rape. A rape complaint was filed against him in October of 2017, before his mom's email, by the way, when he was still married to his second wife. It was alleged that he sexually assaulted a Republican woman at a conference in Monterey, California. A lot's going to come out. They are going to bat for Hegseth, but this is a man, the largest organization he ever led was the Platoon, which is about 20 to 30 soldiers. That's literally the largest thing he ever led. He did lead veterans against, or I don't know, he's led a couple of organizations that are been really instrumental in trying to privatize the VA. Obviously, this is going to be a very contentious one. They are going to bat for him, so we'll see. Obviously, a lot of the cabinet's full of crazy people like that. His marriages alone are troubling. But Hegseth's mom sent him a mean email. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about the other side of the aisle. Last night, it came out that Ben Wickler, who is currently the DNC chairman for Wisconsin, has announced that he is going to run for chairman of the Democratic Party. He's entering under a motto. It says the race, he announced, is a platform to unite, fight, and win. Now, Wickler joins two other announced candidates for the job. We got Martin O'Malley, who's the former governor of Maryland, and Ken Martin, who's the chair of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party. And then another gentleman, James Skoufis, just announced. He's a little known New York State senator who's running for the race. But that's not all that's going to run for this. Others we've heard considering entering the Democratic DNC chairman race is former Representative Max Rose, our friend at VoteVets. If you know Max, he's a good friend. Chuck Rocha, who's also a friend of VoteVets and a friend of mine who I've known for many years. He worked on the Bernie Sanders campaign. If you don't know Chuck was also the manager for his consultancy, ran the very successful campaign of Ruben Gallego, who just won Senate. And of course, and we've also heard that possibly Mallory McMorrow, the Michigan State legislature, who's become very well known since her passionate debates on abortion and other issues in Michigan. So it's got quite a group. Now, of course, we all know Jamie Harrison's there. Jamie will be stepping down. He's not running for re-election. He's done an amazing job for 4 years. There's no question about that. We would love to see the results be better on November 5th. But you can't deny that Jamie did take a 50-state strategy and territories and did a lot of good things. He was very engaged. Right now, there is a meeting scheduled for February 1st in Oxon Hill, Maryland, to discuss the nominees and the plans. So we'll see. Little background on Mr. Wickler. He's led the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, has become one of the top fundraisers in the country. One of the biggest things he's done there, he's raised over $150 million over 5 years in the job. And if you guys know much about the state parties, it is hard. It's hard to raise money. Wisconsin isn't a blue state. It's purplish. It is hard to raise money in red states. Here in Missouri, if you know I'm based in Missouri, it's very difficult for the local state party, the Missouri State Dems and Wisconsin State Dems, to raise money. So the fact that he was able to pull together $150 million and win 9 of the last 14 statewide elections is pretty good for a state level. The next year will become that face of the party, obviously after a very difficult election. And of course, they'll be facing a second administration for Donald Trump. We're going to need somebody who can unify the party, bring together the disputes that are going right now. I mean, we're all kind of looking at what happened, why it happened. We're all going to need to kind of pull ourselves together a little bit and become allies again and figure out where we align. And it's going to take someone who can bring people together. Again, the election process starts next month. Candidate interviews will begin in January and then February 1st. So exciting. I even know a few more people who have called me saying they may be running as well. So there's going to be a lot of choice for the Democratic Party to find a leader in this new era of news from Donald Trump. So that's a lot of the news that's going on right now. Every week we'll cover a little bit more. It's tough news, not always easy. But we'll have to keep on going. But there's even more important things going on in the world. We're going to have that discussion with some folks. I would love to bring our panel on if they're all set. JJ, we ready to go with our friends on the panel? Oh, hey, Rachel. Come on in, Rachel. We'll bring Rachel in. Rina will join us shortly. My friend Rachel Vindman, you know her from a lot of places. She's the Red Wine and Blue co-host of the Red Wine and Blue podcast. How many states did you visit during the election, Rachel?
I don't know. I lost count, or maybe I blocked it out, Fred.
Come on.
I mean, 5 or 6 in person, and did a lot of virtual events. I wanted to do everything I could, and I think I did. I mean, I always think there could have been more or should have been more. I mean, that's the life of I guess someone like me. But it wasn't what we wanted here. I'm sorry. I'm just going to move my pillow over a little so everyone can it's my favorite. Okay. If I'm too much, go find less.
That's nice. I like it.
It's like my favorite thing.
Well, there you go.
But,
settling down now.
Yeah, it's like I think like many people, I'm still kind of in shock. I'm still processing. I still have days. I mean, some people, like the richest man in the world, helps me helps me along in that days when I just get really kind of a punch to the solar plexus. But I mean, I think you said it well, and you've said it many times. You got to stand up, dust yourself off, and keep on. I mean, my Substack is called Keep Moving Forward. I feel like that is a theme for my life is, I mean, anyone, when you get to be a certain age, like 50, like me, I mean, you've gone through some stuff. And the key to it is, acknowledging that it wasn't what you wanted and that things happened that you didn't expect and moving on from that. And you have a lot of experience with that as well. Maybe that's why we're such good friends.
That's it. I mean, honestly, I learned you're a military spouse. I'm a military officer. It's like you pretty much have to kind of move on and figure things out. There's not a lot of time to navel gaze, and unfortunately, in these fast moving times, we've seen so many people say, "Oh, I just want to take a break from politics and figure things out." And again, it is what it is. So you can't.
I mean, politics is not going to take a break from us. They are talking every day about what they're going to do to us, where it's going to go, what their plans are. And so we have to be in there too, or we're just going to be, I don't know what the word is.
It is. I mean, that's it.
It's not possible to be a bystander. Yeah.
And they're ready.
Possible. Yeah. And it will affect all of us. It's not possible to just say, I'm going to sit this out for the next 4 years, or I'm not going to watch the news. It's okay if you don't watch the news, and I mean like mainstream media. I mean, you're watching here, so you're already doing the right thing. You don't have to watch 24 hours of news shows, but you do need to be informed, and you need to be informed so you can talk to others. And that is really, I think, the way that we reach the people who are, low information voters, I mean, they're like low information humans, and we have to reach them in different ways. We have to get creative. And I don't know how much we're going to get into it this year, but I mean, the reality is the campaign can say all they want about what the deck, was stacked against them. And hey, I get it. But there was a lot of traditional thinking that we need to shed. And I did not know some of those names that you were talking about running for. I only know the guy from Wisconsin. Ben, I don't remember his name. So Ben Whitler. But the other names really excite me because it is going to take, a couple weeks ago, we went to a bar mitzvah in LA, and I had the trip booked, I canceled it, and then I booked it again, like all in the span of like 5 days. And because I wasn't really in the mood to party. I wasn't really in the mood for a lot of things, but we went, and I'm glad I did, and I had an amazing time.
Yeah.
But one of the things the rabbi said during the service is, in Judaism, we have this thing called Lador Vador, and it means from generation to generation. And the rabbi said something that I thought was so powerful, and that is, that's not one way. That's not the older generation passing on to the younger generation. That's receiving information from them as well. And it really stuck with me so much that I pulled my phone out and wrote it down during the service. It's okay. It was a Reform synagogue, so it's fine. But I was like, I mean, it's true. We have to receive. And like, I'm 50, you're older than me. Like, at some point you have to realize, no problem. I just like to point it out because there are not a lot of people in my life that are older than me. And no one in my house, by the way. So it is important, I think, to say, like, we need to get, not just have people as tokens on the campaign. They need to be the consultants. They need to be the ones leading the way on how to reach people. And I know for a fact that did not happen on this campaign. And I'm not saying that because this campaign is done and gone. Yeah. We are moving forward, but we have to move forward. We have to move forward smarter. We have to work harder and we have to work smarter. We have to do it all, but maybe listen to the people who are in these spaces and figure out what's best. And I don't think, I know for a fact that didn't happen with this campaign. And
we've talked about a lot. You and I talked a lot about in our web. So everybody knows that when Rina joins us, she was running late. We have a group chat. We talk all day, and that's one of the things we talked about is we didn't go everywhere. It's one of the reasons we started the show, right? Is the idea that we need to be in more places. We need to have other channels. It isn't just politics. It isn't just news. It's everywhere. It's about being in these different places. So I think that's why we have to have more, and we have to push our friends in the Democratic Party to come to these places. They have to be here
all the time too, not just when it's election. Like if you want to get information out, I mean, this is a little bit of a criticism. I hope this is a safe space. I am not.
Yes, of course. Nobody's watching. Lots of people are.
Nobody is perfect, but we need to say something. I was 2 years ago or something. I was invited with a bunch of people. I hate this term, influencer. These are like social media, like DC influencers, which, by the way, being a DC influencer is like being DC hot, which means you're like, 10 in LA, or like, you be a 10 in DC as a 4 in LA, something like that, or whatever they say. So that's like, I mean, I totally understand this is meaningless, but I lived in Virginia at the time. So I went to the White House and the idea was great. Is like, how do we tell people about the wins of this administration? How do we get people to understand what this administration has done? They knew the mainstream media either wasn't covering it or it wasn't resonating. It wasn't getting across. Right. So, then they really wanted that message to get out, but the person who should have been getting that message out was President Biden, and either he couldn't or wouldn't, or, maybe there were some issues that he didn't feel comfortable going in these places or didn't understand the value of these places. That's okay. And I totally get it. But the fact remains, it has to be a constant communication. Trump changed the way the politicians communicate with the American people, and that is a done deal. We're not going back. Okay. We're not going back on that. And we have to go forward with these new tools. And I know it's hard to say we're like taking a page out of the Trump playbook, but that's what people on both sides kind of expect now. And that's why we have to be in those places all the time. So I'm really excited about the show because I think this is something that is really powerful. Anyone can join.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be like you go to hair and makeup and you spend like an hour,
Right.
in addition to everything else. Like it doesn't have to be like that. I mean,
Let's add somebody. There we go. Good timing. You gave me a segue. You gave me a segue because Rina does go to the studio and do hair and makeup.
She does.
And now she's here on
Bless her
Sunday morning
heart.
with us.
Yeah.
But
she's
Rina's
good.
joining us.
I mean, you guys, like, even if you don't watch the stations, you should watch Rina's clips. She sends them to us all the time. And I'm like, that's good. I mean,
I agree.
But hey, I just want to say in the campaign, I was like, did JD Vance do anything but conservative podcasts for the last like 4 years? Because there were like endless numbers of podcasts that he said stupid things on. Obviously, it didn't hurt their chances of getting elected. But I mean, they've been in these places, is my point. And we have to be in these places too, all of them.
And Rina, you do that. You watched all that unfold. You do News Nation. You do BBC. So anyway, Rina Shah's joined us now. Rina is a Republican, I think, still, which we can talk about that separately. Yeah. She was the first Never Trump delegate. We still respect you, and you see her a lot on TV. She's on CNN. She's on News Nation. Rina, welcome to the show. Glad to have you. Sorry about the glitches. Glad to see you this morning, joining us for the very first show.
Thank you, friends. I mean, I got to start by saying how embarrassing that the millennial in the chat was like late and having connectivity problems. Like,
kind of on brand, I think. I don't know. It seems like you're on brand.
I don't know. You're like a
Grandpa was here first, y'all.
Yeah.
Grandpa was here first.
It was like those memes, like the boomer and the Gen X and the. But you're not a boomer. I know you're not a boomer, Fred. But you know when someone makes those memes and they like dress up and that's like who's on time, who's late, who's like what we have a meeting at 9.
Fighting words right there.
I know you're not. You're Gen X like me. We're cool.
Yes, I am. We are cool.
You are cool. I mean, you guys actually had real taste in music because I'm listening to like whatever's coming through these days, and I'm feeling like, wow, are we just getting dumber because things are getting sped up? It's like I listened to Phil Collins the other day, In the Air Tonight, but it was like sped up by like 6x. It was terrible.
Oh, that's unnecessary.
Unnecessary. Which like reminds me kind of how like politics is going right now. Truly, it's like
there you go. That's it. Right.
It's just on amphetamines. I mean, we've never been in a moment like this. I feel like I've studied all of this and everyone's like, explain it. What's going down? I'm like, nobody can explain this because there's no modern guide. I mean, we just fell off the cliff.
That's it. Like, I don't know what's happening. I mean, it's funny how people reach out to me and they're like, Fred, explain X. Like, I got nothing. Nothing. You're on your own.
It's always so funny when the BBC asks, though. So I do a lot of the internationals. And I'm like, they ask in their very proper British accent. So what do you think about Trump? I'm not even going to try to imitate a British accent. Most of my family is in the UK, but I cannot emulate one. So I'll just say this. I feel as if, the world is looking, right? And they're asking us with serious, like, interest. But what can I say other than it's all stupid? We have reached a new low where our fellow citizens are literally like, tell us all that there is to know about these crackpots. People who go down to Mar-a-Lago, buy memberships, all for what? Because they want to kiss the ring and get more money, get more power. Like, it's everything we raise our kids not to be. And I say this everywhere. So like, reductive political analysis has kind of become my thing. I hate to say it. It's kind of just the worst thing to say that we have no guide, but we do have norms. And all we have to do is trust the right people to step up. But you can't trust the right people to step up when it frankly takes a prostration of like astronomical proportions. Like the people I have seen convert themselves from moderate, normal, kind of just middle of the road political types to full on MAGA. It's disturbing, right? And so people say, like, why haven't you done it? I'm like, it's because I just believe in better. Like, is that weird to just say, I don't believe I have to kiss a ring. I don't believe I have to pay money to play. So I'm going to sit over here in activism land now and believe that we can like dismantle some of the system.
Yeah, we
right?
welcome you. We have, if the water's warm, we have cookies. No, I agree. That's it. We just have to fight what we can. It's something, and we guys, the three of us talk about this a lot. It's we're going to have to join up on the issues we care about, the facts we care about. And I'm going to talk about it later in the show, but it's not enough to say, well, that's what they voted for, because you guys know, you guys, especially you've got a young family. Well, both you guys have young families. I've got grandkids. I got a daughter. I got kids. That are going to be affected with these policies. My son's a veteran. I'm a veteran. My son-in-law is still in the Army. We are going to be affected by these policies. So it's not enough to throw our hands in the air and say, well, 65% of people wanted this, or whatever it may be in that place. I mean, we have to fight no matter what, don't we?
But can I offer you guys one bit that has really like stuck with me this morning, as I was thinking about like what we all talk about, the three of us, and how fun it is to just kind of be able to be myself with you guys and just tell you what I'm thinking, because too often in Washington, you just can't be yourself. You have to play
Right.
the game. You have to be strategic, because even your friends are the people that will stab you in the back. I mean, I went through that in 2016. The
Yeah,
very people that I had been a foot soldier for, thinking I'd like come up through this great party structure, those were the people that knifed me so hard. And so to be able to like have you two and just tell you like what I'm thinking, and you guys either come back with, well, hey, this is what I'm thinking that's a little different, or like, hey, solid point, hadn't thought of it that way. And
yeah,
I think that's like what we need more of, is people to just push on each other a little bit with like a little bit of love and care. Because right now there's this
Yeah.
whole apparatus that, so this was my thought this morning. We are no longer in a place where it's about policy. The various types of people that have come up in Trump World 2.0 are not policy folks. They have no respect for it. They've been completely unserious,
No
right?
experience.
No experience,
right.
no desire to want to craft policy that is thoughtful, that has longevity, that has teeth, that could impact people's lives for the better. It's like a right here, right now approach, and it's all personality based. So that's
Yeah.
what I've like sort of been thinking about. Like, how do we fight? We have to be strategic and remember that we can't attack these people's personalities, because that's what they want. They want us to attack their personality, right?
Right.
And
Right. That's it.
oh,
That's
look
that we
at you
get
being
drawn to their stuff. Yeah.
yeah, like, people like, oh, you just have a problem with who I am as a person. I'm like, no, actually, I mean, as a person, we could probably have a good time. We could probably party, whatever. Like, get down with each other on a social level.
Yeah.
But, I mean, some of these people do a lot of drugs, and I do not endorse that shit. The number one, there's that. I'm talking about listen to some.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Now, hold on. Now, what kind of drugs?
We're going to have to back up. No, I'm sorry. I don't know if there was a plan.
She's opened a can of worms.
Yeah.
No, but
All
I
the
had a
policy-
lot of conversations about slander and libel lately. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
I feel like we might be entering that.
Yeah, hey, I don't want to get sued again. I'm already being sued by
Thank
Mike
you.
Flynn as it is. So for people who don't understand, I think Rachel and I are both DC refugees. Rachel has fled to Florida, and I have fled to St. Louis, Missouri. For reasons none of us understand, Rina's hanging in there in DC. And so this group is a little bit, so a couple of us said, bye-bye. And that was a while ago now.
I wish
So
I could.
you're on hold. All right, so let's do that. I want to do a new thing we're going to do in the show. You guys know it's coming. For folks watching, we're going to do a thing called the panel picks. We're going to have topics to discuss, and some may or may not be serious. We'll see. Let's throw the panel picks up. So Hallmark movies, Thanksgiving, Trump's cabinet of curiosities, and of course, Hegseth's mom. Rina, you join us second. Millennials go first. All right, what do you want to talk about first?
I mean, I'm going to go for Hegseth's mom. Like, that email.
Okay, can I just say, I want to say something. Rina
Go
texted
ahead.
us at like 10 o'clock, actually after, I don't know what time it was, because I got home from Thanksgiving a little after 10 on Friday night. I'm like in bed, I was reading, and Rina texts this thing from Hegseth's mom, and I'm like, oh my God, what's this going to be? But I can't look away. And then I'm like,
I mean, his mom went off on his ass. What do you think, Rina?
I was floored when you read that as a
oh my God.
parent. I mean, my kids are not of like, I mean, they're whose kids frontal lobes are fully developed, not until 25, right?
Right,
so
right.
I guess yours are, Fred. So you're out of that. But my kids are like, tiny, like preschool age type of stuff. So I can't, but I felt that as a mother, if you've got to admit your child has been wrong, like your child is so wrong for you to admit that. The words she used, like she can say anything now, but we already read your words, lady. You you gave birth to a bad apple.
She might regret it, and she might have repaired some relationship with him since she wrote it in 2018, I think.
Yeah.
but she meant it. There is no doubt in my mind she meant it, and she might regret it. Those are two separate things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, and they're harsh things. And we know now in retrospect, I even know if she knew about the rape allegations that were just a few months before that. I mean, and what bothers me too is, in that sense too, I mean, this is a guy whose lawyer admitted publicly that they paid off the accuser so he wouldn't lose his job at Fox News. So if you think about it for a second, you guys, Fox
Like they have
News
standards.
has standards more than I'm terrified to find out the Republicans in Senate do. It's like, because we've already seen like Mark Wayne Mullin say, whatever, she didn't actually press charges, so whatever. It's crazy. But yeah, your mom wailing on you like that is pretty harsh, I think. And go ahead.
But also like show business TV, like you guys know this in our private conversations. I'm just floored by the quality of these people. They are really as bad as like what you've been told. Yeah, like it's a true act that he's putting on, and therefore you don't have the ability to lead in any way because you're a fake. You're putting something on for the screen, this image that is like
It's true.
This all-American combat veteran, like looking like he's like the part. Like you peel back the veneer, this is a guy who doesn't like women, sees them as objects, thinks that he can dispose of them. Like any of us should just be looking at this and being like, wait, I want somebody that has deep reverence for everybody. And that person that's what a military man is to me, is somebody who has nobody who's been part of the American military. I just think the mother's letter, wow, like that has got to be the nail in the coffin for his confirmation hearing. Because I know Senator Shelley Moore Capito, Murkowski, Collins, these are decent women. I just don't understand how they could read the words of this woman and be like, that's a whole bunch of pain right there. And what do they say? Hurt people hurt people.
Right. And Joni Ernst has come out saying she's really struck by these, and she's a team player, but when she's saying, I mean, she herself has said she was a victim of military sexual assault in the military. That's what she's told that story. And so the idea of a military officer who's been accused of sexual assault, I can't imagine what's going through her head. It'll be interesting to see how they take this on, but these are very serious allegations. I'm still kind of shocked they're all piling on, but yeah, his mommy tailed off. All right, bring up the screen again, JJ. So, all right, Rachel, it's your turn. Go.
I'm just gonna go with Hallmark movies.
Yes.
Fred recommended that we watch.
I did.
Movie Hot Frosty.
Hot Frosty.
I was out last night and didn't want to watch it when I got home, so I did start it this morning. I did not finish it, so don't tell me what happens. Okay, I haven't been able to finish it, but
it's a mystery.
I'm confused because Lacey Chabert, and yes, I know her name because I listen to the Hallmark Christmas channel.
Yes.
And sometimes I have the Hallmark channel as well during June because it's like wedding month on Sirius.
Christmas in July.
And, yes, right. And so, so Lacey Chabert is like, and she has like a whole like set of songs if you're listening to the right thing on the Christmas channel.
Okay.
And then she actually though is party to a suit, I think, suing Hallmark for age discrimination, which is really weird to me because I want to see. I mean, I'm 50. I want to see more like older people. I feel like that's probably who watches Hallmark movies, if we're just being honest. And so this is very curious to me. But does Netflix have their own, like, are they making their own Hallmark movies?
Rina, like Hallmark movies, I believe.
It's like Hallmark, but it's like
Heather Chip on the show.
We say Hallmark, but we
Hallmark
you know what I mean. Yes,
it's the Hallmark movie universe, we call it the HMU. And the Hallmark movie universe allows you to run into people in your hometown with a cup of coffee. I mean, it's magical. I'm telling you right now. As a man who moved back to his hometown for a girl, come on. Yeah.
Wow, you guys that.
Exactly. I'm that guy. Well, it's funny. We bonded when my fiance Heather and I were living a year apart. We actually bonded over watching Hallmark movies at the same time, and I was very skeptical of this. I'm telling you right now. I mean, look at me. I'm an Army Ranger. Listen, I'm a big tough guy. Obviously, I'm not. But if I was, But hey, now what? It's if you guys ever see Ted Lasso, where he talks about Hallmark movies, and they all laugh because they know what it is, and he tells Roy, it's like, well, they're really terrible, but they're also great, and you can turn them on and not watch them, but they're pretty awesome. And I'm like, yes, that is it. Right, Rina, do you watch this crap? Come on, tell me.
Of course. Okay, so I've been watching since I was in my college, like 1920.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I don't know if it's just my generation of women that have we've been doing this, and like we were outed, you know, like millennial women love their Hallmark movies. Like I don't know. I feel like something's changed though. So Chriselle Strauss, she's in Hot Frosty, or
Yes.
you know,
Hot
so
Frosty.
she is.
Yeah.
I'm not a big reality TV consumer, I will add, but I love this Selling Sunset. It's just so crazy on Netflix. It's
Yeah.
the show centered around all these women selling real estate in LA.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really loved her because she's from Kentucky. She got terribly dumped by like this. She was a former soap opera star. And then she's come from this just so much awfulness. Like her parents were both addicts. I think they both have passed. Just coming from the holler of Kentucky. I'm from West Virginia, as you both know. So I think I just like that she succeeded and has made it in LA.
Yeah.
But I think it speaks to this interesting new phenomenon of like, are people going to start, are there going to be influencers in the future Hallmark movies? Or these?
Yes.
I think there are. I think there are.
I think so too.
I did pass the Hallmark headquarters of like the movie film headquarters when I was in LA for the aforementioned mitzvah. And Alex was like, "Do you want to get out and take your picture?" And I was like, "Shut up!" But also, yes.
Yes, it was featured in one of the movies.
Yeah, it wasn't really like possible, but
if you haven't watched, was it Three Wise Men and a Baby? And they had a sequel this year, Three Wiser Men and a Boy, I think it is. And I gotta tell you, they're actually hilarious. I got the new seasons are actually pretty funny. I mean, I've been actually Heather walk in and catch me watching after she goes to bed, and I'm, it's like, I mean, I admit it. It's fine. I don't care. It doesn't hurt me at all. Anyway, I think it's that time of year. Hallmark movies are part of our culture, and we can all bond over the cheesiness of it all. But I love the one where there's a great meme on the internet of I watched a Hallmark movie backwards, and a woman gets rid of her ugly sweater, leaves her boyfriend from her hometown, moves to the big city, and looks hot in a pencil dress and a big job. And so that's really
they're not mentioning baked goods.
Pretty accurate. Yeah,
I really only like the ones that involved baked goods or some sort of food.
Don't they all? I think, isn't he like the big trend now is they're fix it guys. I've seen two, but even Hot Frosty, if you remember, he fixes up the house, right? And then there's another one we watched the other day where they're fixing the house. I'm telling you. So this season, I think the theme this year is going to be, home fix it guys. I don't know. Either way, it's amazing. So all right, bring the panel back up, JJ. We got to pick some more. All right, it's my turn, I guess, isn't it? I want to talk about Thanksgiving. So,
okay,
how Thanksgiving go? Now, so set this up. Rina's the child of Indian immigrants. She has a large family, traditional Indian family. Rachel, of course, is a lovely Jewish lady, but from Oklahoma. You went home, didn't you, Rachel?
I did.
All right.
I mean, not like home, to my hometown. Because my grandmother is still like, both my parents have passed away. And my grandmother, my mom's mom is still alive. She's 98. And we do Thanksgiving at her house. And she had a slight stroke, like August, September, they're not really sure. And so she now uses a walker, and much to her dismay. And so she was sort of like telling everyone what to do, as if we can't, like, my aunt and I aren't like full grown adults who could make a meal on our own. But so things get a little tense, I must say, but it's all part of the process. Okay. It's trust the process, like the craziness, the family, the whole thing. And it was really lovely, but, her house, she keeps it around 78 or 80, and it was cold outside. So I'm just happy to be home in Florida where it's warm outside and cold inside. That is how I like it.
You were texting us like, it's 78 in here, I'm sweating.
It feels like you can't breathe. I mean, it really it also kind of curbs my and when I'm there, there's not a lot to do. She lives in a town of less than 3,000, so like I want to eat a lot. But it really I don't want to. I just want to drink water. I don't even really want to eat. But Rina, so Thanksgiving was great, and it's my favorite holiday. What did you guys do?
Rina, you had family in town, didn't you?
I had a lot of family. So much.
How many came to town?
I disconnected from life because I was just so overwhelmed by it all. Like I have my 3 humans running around trying to kill each other. The youngest one, it's Darwinism, right? She's like eating things that we never fed the other two. Like raising herself. I'm like, oh wow, you're eating more mashed potatoes. This is bizarre. I mean, there's always an Indian element to our Thanksgivings, I have to add. And
and what is the Indian? What's the Indian element of a Thanksgiving? I want to know.
So y'all are going to be disappointed. Okay, wait. I'm
Okay.
a lifelong vegetarian who
Okay.
married a carnivore, right? And
Okay.
married 10 years now. And he just, I don't know. He's okay now. He missing meat. But how I grew up was with a fake turkey. So a cauliflower, like made to look like a turkey, like numerous cauliflower heads put together to be the body of a turkey. And then my mother made this like peanut cashew based, I guess, gravy. And then we had the carrot and it's a vegetarian's dream, I'll have you know.
My brother, I do have a brother, my brother that lives in Oklahoma, his whole family has like, we don't have time to list all their allergies and foods that they don't eat. It is so many, but they literally bring like all their own food. But my grandmother, because this is her love language, and I mean, she just loves cooking for us.
Yeah.
So she's like, "Can I make this for him?" And I'm like, "No, they don't eat like custard pie." I don't know if custard pie is like basically just eggs and milk. And she's like, "Oh no, we cannot." I'm like, "No, they don't eat eggs or milk." I mean, like it's like the main ingredient or gluten, and that's in the quest. I mean, but my grandmother is like stressing about all this, and I'm like, it kind of breaks my heart because she wants to make him something, but I'm like, literally, they can eat nothing, like turkey and potatoes, but they're gonna bring their own, like, but.
But so
anyway,
I gotta tell you guys, I was looking at all the pricing for all these like DC restaurants to cater in our Thanksgiving because my siblings are really committed to the American experience, right? Of like, we must always, because we did it since we were kids. Our parents never made us feel like we're going to totally Indianify every.
Okay.
I have a lot of friends who did that. Like their parents just straight up didn't do Thanksgiving, didn't do Christmas. We did all that. And maybe it's because we were in a small town in West Virginia that like, even though we're not Christian, we still do Christmas with as much. Like we decorated yesterday, my siblings and I. So I just feel like I was looking around. I'm thinking to myself, man, DC is unreal. Like the pricing of the per person of these restaurants was, I think, could rival LA and New York. I mean, something's happened to DC in the past, I think 10 years where it's a bigger deal than it is. I'm like, $80 per person for like 5 sides and a main. Like, you're kidding me. Get the hell out of here. Wow. So that really struck me this year. There's a lot of privilege.
I think DC is unaffordable. I mean, this is a topic for a different day, but I think we have trouble. Like we're going to have trouble having like even normal, like, aides on the Hill, staffers, all this, because like it is really hard for people to even, you might see a salary and think that seems like a lot of money. It is not a lot of money for DC. And like, I remember Alex's cousin, she and her husband, like they lived like a 1-bedroom apartment and their rent was more than our mortgage in like Northern Virginia, but like not the top tier Northern Virginia, like a little bit farther south. And like, but their mortgage was, I mean, their rent was more than our mortgage that included like taxes and insurance, so that was many years ago. So it is really unaffordable, and that's going to like come to a head soon, I think.
But I have to add this last bit about unaffordability. Frank Luntz, the should be shamed Republican pollster, right?
That hair. Oh my God, his hair. Just for his hair.
It's a crime against humanity.
His hair is a crime.
It's really bad hair. He's got bad takes, yet he still gets hired. He gets all the money. More power to you, Frank. But he had this really bad tweet that was, and I can't find it now, but it was like something about, the average cost for the American family. You can feed a family of 4 or 5 for some absurd number, and people roasted him. They were like, no way, Frank, get the F out of here. There's just no way you can feed 4 or 5 mouths with
ramen
money.
every
was
meal.
It was like 70 left. It was really bad. So
all
right, ladies, well, we had to keep moving out. I really appreciate you joining me today for the very first On Democracy Sunday.
Thanks for having us.
Had a good time. We kept it light, thank God. I appreciate you both. I'm sure I'll be texting you in the next hour and a half. So
I'm going to stay and watch the rest.
Last year holiday will be great. Well, we appreciate you. Thanks so much, guys.
Bye.
See you soon. All right. So we're our panel. So good times. I hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving. I actually had a great Thanksgiving. We had a very quiet one this year. It was just our family here in St. Louis. And frankly, there was no glitches whatsoever. Thank God. Nobody got too drunk, I think, except me, perhaps. We'll leave it at that. So turning to the thing. So as the show goes on, what we'll do is we'll have our panel. And then I want to talk to folks who are really making a difference, be it elected officials, newsmakers, community organizers, members of our community, people who are doing good things for America, in addition to doing important political work. And I was thrilled to be able to reach out to my friend Steve Steve Schwab. Steve is the CEO of the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. If you're not familiar with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, they're an incredible group. He'll tell us all about it. Senator Elizabeth Dole herself started this foundation way back, I think, 2012, when she saw a need, which I'm sure Steve will explain. So let's welcome Steve Schwab to the show.
Hey, Fred.
Steve, man, good to see you. Yeah, it's been too long.
It's good to see you too. Congratulations. Geez, I was listening, and this show has covered pretty much every topic possible.
We're doing it, man. We're going to touch on everything.
From Hallmark movies to DC living. Listen, I'm in the heart of DC, and it really resonated with me. It costs a lot of money to live here.
Yeah, and you've been there for a while. I mean, you've been a Dole since 2014, right?
Yeah, Fred, you were one of the first folks that welcomed me to this community and this both the DC community and the veteran community that I'm now privileged to serve and work alongside Senator. So yeah, it's been I moved to DC in 2010. I've been with the organization since 2013.
Wow. And it was launched in 2012. Can you tell us that story? Why is Senator Dole, obviously Bob was still alive then. Why did she launch the Dole Foundation for military caregivers?
Yeah, Fred, thanks for the question. If you know the Doles, you know them to be these iconic American public servants. They're the kind of folks we pine for in today's America, who were able to get things done across the aisle and bring consensus. And Senator Elizabeth I got to distinguish which senator I'm talking about.
Right, yeah, exactly. There's a couple of them.
Senator Elizabeth was caring for Senator Bob in the twilight years of his life, in and out of Walter Reed Military Medical Center, the big hospital outside of DC. And she noticed something really compelling in the course of her caregiving duties. And that was that so many American military and veteran families were dealing with injuries and illnesses and wounds with lifelong implications as a result of the longest period of war in U.S. history, Fred, something you're really familiar with because you were in the trenches with us when she came out of that experience and started to talk to people like you and others across the country, trying to gain an understanding why systems of care weren't adequately preparing and caring for folks. And the reality is most American healthcare now and aging and recovery happens in the home, and veterans and the VA and the military medical systems just weren't truly appreciating, and still aren't, frankly, the extent to which veterans and their loved ones want to be at home as opposed to inside VA or DOD medical institutions. And so that's what we've been on the front lines of, Fred, for the last 12 years, a mission to really truly move mountains, to evolve the VA systems and the DOD systems, to pass major pieces of legislation. We've got a huge bill pending on Capitol Hill right now called appropriately named for Elizabeth Dole, the Elizabeth Dole Act, which would transform systems of care for veterans at every level. It passed the House right before the Thanksgiving holiday, 389 yeas to 9 nays. It's the only major piece of veterans legislation that has been passed in this Congress and the House. And Fred, you know DC, your guests know DC. There's not a lot of bipartisan things happening in Washington, DC right now, but one of the things that is this bill to bring more resources to veteran and military homes all across the country.
Yeah, and it starts with that experience that Senator Dole had, Terry for Bob, and talking to young. Now, when you and I so for background for those who don't know, I actually was there. So I had I'd helped a young man who was at George Washington GWU do a project, and several months later he calls me one day and says, "Hey, I'm an intern right now, and they're launching a new program, and they could probably use your help." And at the time, I had a company that was a veterans advocacy firm, and I said, "Cool, who you work for?" He goes, "Oh, Elizabeth Dole." I'm like, "Oh," because I'm like a super fan. I'll just leave it. I'm a huge Elizabeth Dole fan, Libby Dole, and so he goes, "Yeah, can you meet us at your office is where it's at the Watergate, right?" Which is also cool. And so I go down and we sit in this conference room with the staff at the time. You weren't there yet, and Senator Dole sits down next to me, and she just has a way of sucking you in. I mean, she is her charisma, her charm, she's a genuinely decent lady from North Carolina. Still is a sweet lady from that sweet lady from North Carolina you always knew. And in about an hour we bonded, and I said, heck yeah, I'll launch that with 10 days to go. And here you guys are. I mean, and Steve, when you came on board, we actually didn't know the extent of, for perspective for our viewers who don't know, we didn't even know when you started how many caregivers there were. And this is one of those issues that isn't just a veteran issue, right? Obviously, it's a huge issue in the United States of people, a generation, the sandwich generation, they call them, taking care of elderly folks. But in the veteran and military community, back in 2012, we didn't know how big it was, did we?
No, we didn't, Fred. And you were one of the folks who convinced Senator that we needed to do research to truly understand the implications of this long period of war in U.S. history. You know, we were in Iraq and Afghanistan for so long. Fred, you served, you know that we send folks to battle. We don't often think about what the implications are once they serve. And in this particular circumstance, so many of your brothers and sisters came home surviving battlefield wounds that their predecessors hadn't survived, even in Desert Storm, which means the implications of recovery and rehabilitation are longstanding. And so we did a huge research study with Rand. You helped us tell the world about the results. At the time, we stood in the White House with the Obamas in a big bipartisan moment and told America there were 5.5 million military and veteran caregivers. That was in 2014. We just released a new study, Fred, a month ago, also by Rand, bigger in its implications, deeper in its understanding. There's 14.3 million military and veteran caregivers across the country. And to put that in perspective, Fred, you mentioned how huge the caregiving circumstances are in this country. Probably for everybody who's listening right now, you either are a caregiver or you will be someday. There's 100 million plus caregivers across America. Our study showed for the first time that over 100 million Americans, a third of the country, are in some type of caregiving situation, which means this touches every American family. And Fred, both presidential campaigns, and this was the first in American history, talked about the implications that caregiving has on every American family. And so for those who are listening, you know, if you're not thinking about it, you need to. If you need help and support and you're a member of the military community, then you reach out to us and we'll help you plot that path. And if you're a civilian, we'll help you as well. And we'll also refer you to friends and partners like AARP and others who are doing incredible work preparing for this major front of support and activity that we've got to wage in every American community across the country.
And see, that's what I say a lot. And we've had this conversation over the years, Steve. And one of the things we discovered after the war on terror is that veteran issues are in many ways a microcosm of the larger American issues, aren't they? It's like, you know, we are America. That's one of the things they teach us in Military Science 101. People are going to know how old I am, but it's going to date me. But Military Science 101, as a freshman, called a plebe at West Point in 1903, a really long time ago. Yeah, we had computers then. Actually, we didn't. Anyways, back in 1903, I studied it, and one of the things they tell you is an all-volunteer force is a representation of the society it fights for, it represents. And so that's what I was always struck by with this conversation with you guys about caregivers, because I know dozens of people in my own life. My father was struggling at the end. We put my grandmother in a home as she aged. I mean, this is a serious issue for all of America. And so when we study it and we find solutions for it using the veterans, I think the things we learn apply to everybody, don't they?
Yeah, Fred, you know, what's beautiful about the military population and the veteran population is it represents America. You know, through your service, you met folks from every state, and you met folks who immigrated from all across the world, who raised their right hand to serve our country. And so the things that we do in the military and veteran community, the lessons that we learn, the programs that we build are often the best ways to understand how we can support the larger community. That's why most major American medical vaccines and protocols are tested at the VA. The VA is a testing ground for for things like polio and other major medical breakthroughs across the country. That's why we're working with VA to teach doctors, nurses, and social workers on how to integrate caregivers into their medical teams from day one. For veterans who are listening and for military families who are listening, there is incredible work being done at VA and DoD that we're leading to help medical doctors, nurses, social workers, PT therapists, medical assistants understand why family members need to be brought into the medical team on day one. If you're someone who's caring for someone else and you're working inside a civilian healthcare system or the military healthcare system, it's your right to be part of the conversations that's happening with your loved one. And the fact of the VA, Fred, you know that important decisions like disability ratings are made in some of those medical visits. And if that caregiver is not sitting in the room, or that family member is not sitting in the room, Fred, you know that veterans are proud. If someone asked you how you were doing most days, Fred, you'd say, "I'm great," right? And we're friends.
I've been accused of that.
We're friends for a long time, Fred. You know that some days are better than others, but folks like you are reluctant to admit and acknowledge that. So, I mean, Fred, what would you say to your fellow veterans about? I'm asking the host a question here.
I said this is.
You know the value that family members play in their care,
right,
and how important it is for veterans to embrace them and to lift them up and to ensure that they're part of their medical conversations, right?
And they have to be, and the perspective they offer. You know, I've never been shy about talking about my PTSD. I lost men in combat. I lost my wife and baby in a car accident. Nobody gets out safe, right? Nobody gets out unscarred in this life. And for me, if you have long-term trauma, it does, for many of us who serve, it results in memory issues. It results in other issues. I mean, just that, the long-term effects of trauma plus physical injuries. Memory's not great. It has been wonderful for me. My fiance Heather has been great about that. She steps in, and I've gotten in the habit of now bringing her with me to medical appointments because she can hear the things that I don't hear very well, and it's been incredibly important. We just had an appointment about I'm getting back surgery because my back is jacked up from years and years of abuse, So yeah, it's so key. But you're right; that's not always a welcome thing in the VA system or the military medical system, is it?
No, it's not. And veterans, there is a stigma in and among military and veteran families to acknowledge physical problems, but certainly mental and emotional conditions. We're doing a lot on the suicide prevention front right now, Fred. We're losing far too many veterans to suicide. It's an epidemic. It's an epidemic across this country among probably everyone who's listening. I often ask folks in the room, have you either indirectly or directly been impacted by suicide? And almost every hand is raised. So we need folks who are listening. We need veterans like you, Fred, to acknowledge when they're having good days and bad days, when they need the help, strengthening and encouraging that asking for help is a sign of strength, and then connecting them with resources that are life-saving, like the resources we're trying to get passed in this legislation. I mean, for everyone listening, we could use your help. Call your senator and tell your U.S. senator to pass the Elizabeth Dole Act. It has to be passed in this current Congress, or we got to start all over again. And this has been 18 months in the waiting to bring life-saving reforms to veterans, Fred, like you, and caregivers all over the country.
And that's what I was going to ask. So where I know it passed Congress, House amazingly. We've only got a couple weeks left in the lame duck session. Where is it in the Senate right now? Do you think it's going to make it, or do we need to get everybody to start making some phone calls right away?
Well, we do need everyone to start making phone calls right away. Pick up the phone, call both your senators from your home state. If you need their information, reach out to Fred or me. We'll tell you who your senators are and how to contact them. We got 2 weeks to get this done. The president-elect is obviously making a lot of nominations, which are creating a lot of oxygen, taking up a lot of oxygen in the room. But we need our senators to focus on this life-saving legislation. It's the only substantive piece of legislation for veterans benefits this Congress. We're waiting for final language from the House, so we're pressuring our friends in the House to get that to us on Monday. And then Senator and I are going to be working with Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell to get their conferences on board and move this thing as quick as we can.
That's amazing. Well, if anybody can get it done, Libby Dole can get it done. It's the one story you hear about Senator Dole every time you go to an event or something. I remember Tom Hanks saying it best about him. She called Tom Hanks up and said, Tom, I need you. He's like, okay. And so she has truly been described throughout her life as a force of nature. It's the reason she got the Medal of Freedom from the president. She is truly a force of nature. And if they can get it done, you and her together can get it done. And I have no doubt about that in my mind. Well, Steve, tell everybody where they can find more information about what you're doing.
ElizabethDoleFoundation.org. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. Fred, it's been awesome to spend your debut morning with you.
Yeah.
Congratulations and good luck. I'm going to be tuning in so that I can listen more about Hallmark politics. And it's refreshing to hear something on a Sunday morning that's practical and fun. And I'll keep listening.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much. Keep up the good work. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Fred.
I'm a huge fan. I'm a super fan of Steve and Elizabeth Dole. The work they've done, I was able to witness it for many years and sit with Senator Dole and go over like speeches. I used to help her do some of her speeches and her testimony. And it was such an honor to get that call. When Steve would call me and say, hey, Senator wants to see you. Like, yeah, I'm driving up there. I'm going to drive from Richmond to the Watergate. But if you could do more, ElizabethDoleFoundation.org, I really recommend you check them out. Again, these issues affect all Americans, not just our veteran community. When you talk about so many millions of people that are facing these challenges, especially as our population ages. So really, truly leading the way. So our second interview, I've again, this is full of friends this week, and a lot of you know already from when I posted the promo about the show. I was like, oh my God, Jess Piper's coming. So my good friend Jess Piper is joining us. Let's have Jess join the show.
Hey, friend, how are you doing?
Good. It's so good to see you. I appreciate you joining us on Sunday morning.
Absolutely. How have you been?
I've been great, having a good time so far. For those who don't know, Jess is executive director of Blue Missouri, mother to 5, grandmother to the 3 still. Is that still accurate? You got more now, don't you?
4. I've got 4 grandkids now.
Good Lord, me too, 4. So she lives in a small farm near the Missouri-Iowa border, born and raised in rural America. She ran for a state house here in Missouri. Now she runs a thing called Blue Missouri, which we're going to learn a lot about. But she's also a force of nature as well in rural organizing, and she has a huge following. If you are not reading her Substack, The View from Rural Missouri, you're missing out because a lot of people are. So I'm telling you, I'm a huge fan, Jess.
You know how I feel about you, Fred, you and Heather. It's so good to see you. We're doing good. Thanksgiving is over. We took a drive to the Lake of the Ozarks the day before yesterday, kind of got refreshed, and now everybody's got to go back to school, but I get to stay home.
I'm glad to hear it. You've been, we first met, I think, in 2020, as a matter of fact. It's funny. I was organizing a veteran and military family committee, advisory group for the Lincoln Project. I just joined the Lincoln Project, and my then girlfriend Heather, living in Missouri, said, "Man, there's this lady on Twitter you should get to know, and she's a Blue Star mom. Her son's the National Guard, and she'd be perfect for your team." And I said, "All right, I think I DM'd you, and here we are." And you were just getting rolling then, and you've had quite a road since then, haven't you?
Yeah, we have. But what we're doing really makes a lot of sense. I ran for state house in 2022 and lost, got my butt kicked, but I learned a whole lot of lessons. And that is that we should be paying attention to rural areas. I'm talking about it today on my Substack. The fact that there are studies, Fred, that show if we turn out 3% more rural voters, that impacts top of the ticket. That impacts presidential elections, 3%. And the reason that we're struggling in rural areas is because the Democrats pack their stuff up and hit the road, right? And ever since, the Republicans, you know what? Republicans don't have to be here either. They don't even have to campaign. They got the churches working for them, right? So yeah, that's what's happening. And it's just so frustrating that people aren't realizing what exactly is happening.
Yeah, and you're seeing it. You see it unfold every day. Why when people look at? I mean, I know organizers, they look at rural America, and let's be honest, they kind of throw their hands in the air, right? A lot of times, especially on our side of the aisle. What do you tell, like, when you meet one of these political candidates or as consultants, and they look at you like they don't know what to do? What's the first advice you give a candidate or a group or anybody who's trying to reach rural America, especially rural Democrats?
put somebody on the ground that is in their community, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because when you have people working inside their communities, they already have relationships with their friends and neighbors. And the
Mhm.
reason that we struggle with this is that Democrats kind of forget about us. And then, for 6 or 8 weeks at the end of a campaign, they come in and they try to send, college kids to come in and talk to my neighbors who are like, "Oh my gosh, like I don't know you. Who are you? What are you about?" and that sort of thing. So we need to fund people where they are. We need to fund rural organizers, and for a long time we haven't been doing that, right? So we
Yeah.
need to get back to that. And to counter, people will always say, it's the churches, they're preaching from the pulpits. They are. They absolutely are. How do you counter that? You got to be in the spaces. And that's where Democrats have given up and
Yeah.
walked away. And oh my God, Fred, if you think about it like this, Wyoming has how many senators? 2.
Yeah.
California has how many?
2.
2. Why aren't we paying attention to Wyoming? Right?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Montana, why aren't we paying attention to these areas where it wouldn't take that much, of people in their spaces to make a massive impact?
Yeah, and it is a lot of work, right? It's hard to reach people. We're always looking for those clusters, right? We want to get people in a group and all, but there are ways to reach folks. I mean, you're reaching a lot of people. I mean, you were a machine during the campaign this year. I couldn't keep up with you. For you guys know, I was invited to give a speech at a rally in Springfield, Missouri, and I had the bad fortune to follow Jess. Okay, and she opens up. Oh my Christ! I mean, the room was full. There's cheering and going crazy, and I got there like, who's this asshole? And you do not want to follow Jess because she's a rock star, in a lot of places. I mean, you did a lot of miles during this campaign, didn't you, Jess?
I did, because I mean what I say, and I'm also impacted by all of these terrible policies, and I'm in this space, right? And so I understand why people are mad. People write books all the time. They're like, rural rage, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pissed off. You want to know why? Come to my town. You'll find out why. There used to be 2,500 people. Now there's 480. They've defunded our schools. We don't have any shoulders on the roads. I don't have any place to buy milk. I have to drive 30 minutes to buy, milk, but there's 3 places I can buy a pack of cigarettes, right? It's
Right.
problematic what has happened in rural spaces. They have sold off our towns for parts, and that is why people are angry. Now, what happens is that anger is misdirected a lot of times. It's misdirected at people who don't deserve it, right?
Right.
When I see Democratic messages, sometimes it's hard because people wanted to run on Bidenomics, right? They wanted to talk
Right.
about the great economy. But Fred, it's hard for me to knock a door in my neighborhood and talk about the great economy, right? Because
Right.
it's not great here, because we don't have jobs here, because we don't have unions, because they close our schools, because they do the things that impact our communities. So I really, have to have other resources to talk about. And that's the fact that they, cut insulin prices. That's the fact that they're working with farmers. That's the fact that the Harris Walls campaign actually had a plan for rural America. I talked to Tom Vilsack about this, and I was like, oh my God, nobody has talked to us in forever. I don't remember the last time. Has Trump ever said, here's an outline for things I'm going to do for rural Americans? No,
No.
he doesn't care about us or our schools or our roads or our hospitals. He doesn't care, right? They did, but it was too little too late. The rural organization with, of course, Harris, everything happened so fast, but the rural organization happened in about the last 6 weeks. It,
Wow.
it was too late, right?
Wow.
We needed
And
people on the ground for now, for
right.
2026, right?
Actually, for 2025, right? Because one of the things I've been throwing up a lot is, and I think we have a graphic. You can even show it if you got the graphic, JJ, of the fact that I think 31 states. I've been saying 30, but now Alabama changed their laws, so even Alabama's going to have local elections this year in 2025. So 31 states are having local elections, right? Wisconsin, Pennsylvania have Supreme Court elections, and Virginia, New Jersey have statewide elections for their House and for the governorships and others. So in 2025, we got elections. Those are down ballot races, and down ballot races matter, don't they, Jess?
They matter a lot. If we can, Blue Missouri, we fund the toughest and reddest races. We're not flipping seats. And people say, why would I give money to a race that isn't going to flip? Because down in Southern Missouri, down in the Boot Hill, we supported a candidate named JoJo Stewart.
Yeah.
She lost terribly. She got 15% of the vote. But you know what, Fred? They haven't had a candidate there in 12 years. They have not had a Democrat to vote for 12 years.
Wow.
So 15% of the people came out to vote for Joe. You know what else they did? They voted to make sure that Kamala Harris was the president. They voted to make sure that we passed abortion as a right in this state. So races that cannot win absolutely matter to everything in the entire state and the country.
Right. And that's how you win statewide elections too, right? 15% in rural Missouri that never had, that would have been zero or possibly, that adds up for the governor's race in Virginia, for example. I mean, many ways, those of us who really analyze the Virginia loss from to Terry McAuliffe to Glenn Youngkin, you know, the common knowledge that everybody has just assumed is true is the soccer moms of Northern Virginia are the ones who got that race. But if you really dig the numbers, you discover that in counties where Biden had gotten, say, 25% of the vote or 30% of the vote, only about 15 and 20% showed up. When you multiply that times, 20 counties, guess what? You lose the race by 20,000 votes at the state level, don't you?
You do. And that's why it's so important for us to keep saying down ballot matters. And that's why I sent you that tweet. I talked to, or it's not a tweet. What is it on Blue Sky? Is it a post?
Skeet. I call them skeets. I hate it. I just skeets, I guess.
I posted on there about organizing in rural red spaces since the last Trump administration, and how if we can just drive a few more rural voters out, that makes a difference. And AOC was like, hey, this does make sense. And you're like, it does. And it's really important for a party that's struggling right now. We all know how tough this loss was. We know how hard it is to come back and say, we're still here. We still have to do these things. And that's the thing with me, Fred. I've got nowhere to go. I've got 5 kids and 4 grandkids. I've got a little farm here. I'm not wealthy. I'm not elite. It would be very difficult for me to replicate my life anywhere else. So the only thing I can do is stay and fight, draw the line in the sand and say, no, we're not going to accept this. And we know in states like Missouri, we keep electing Republicans, but the fact is we want a progressive agenda because we vote for those every time, right? We live in a state that had an abortion ban and we had legalized recreational weed. It's like, what's going on? Well, the abortion ban was put in by our representatives and our senators, but what the people want was put on the agenda and we passed it. And guess what? We just overturned our abortion ban too.
Yeah, and that's the dichotomy, right? That we have to give folks a choice. And this is a pro-democracy. We're just talking about some of the comments on the show, like, oh, this is a left channel. Like, well, ish. But really it's about democracy and you have to have a choice. I mean, I spoke with you one time and you said it so very well that when you didn't have a Democrat on the ticket, and this could go even in state, let's be very candid, even in states like say California or Hawaii, where there's only Democrats, your choice is what? Which Republican's going to do the dust damage for you? Or maybe, let's be honest, even in Hawaii, maybe, which Democrat, right? There really isn't, when we don't have choice, we don't actually have a democracy, do we, Jess?
We don't. And for years in places like Missouri, we've taught progressives to vote for Republicans because we gave them no choice. And they would go, I pull Republican ballots all the times during the primaries because, like you said, I want to vote for the person who is least likely to hurt me because they're not going to have a Democrat. And I'll tell you this last time I pulled a Democratic ballot to vote for our governor that I wanted to win, Crystal Quaid. But by the simple fact that I pulled a Democratic ballot, I couldn't vote for a state rep. I couldn't vote for the state or for my county sheriff, not the commissioner, not the assessor, not the prosecutor, not one single county race, because not one county race is opposed by a Republican or by a Democrat, and that's because they know they can't win. There's never been any choice. There keeps not being any choice. And so it's this self-fulfilling prophecy, right? No one's running. I never vote for Democrats. And so I'm just going to keep voting for Republicans.
Right. And that's it. And that goes for places. I mean, look, we've seen it. And by the way, when you have single party rule, look, let's be honest, it it does open the world to corruption. It does open the world to folks who may or may not be. Look at New York City right now. Eric Adams, can any really say he's a Democrat? I mean, come on. But in New York City, to win, he had to be a Democrat. And now we're seeing the fallout of that. He's turned out to be, let's be very honest, a very corrupt man, and there's paying a price for it. He's been indicted by the federal government. I mean, we have to have some choice. For democracy to survive, we have to fight back, which leads to the last part I want to talk to you about is, we've seen so many of those on the left, the Democrats, have really, and I'm going to talk about them after we talk too, they've really kind of just like given up. And I mean, it's been very hurtful for me and scary for me how many of our peers on the left who just sort of said, that's it, we're done. And that's not what we're all about. Is, I mean, you're a rural lady, I'm an old veteran. I mean, we don't have the luxury, if you will, just throw our hands up in the air and walk away, do we?
We don't. And that's where I think, some people can talk about elites. I'm not one. This is where I have to be. This is where I have to stay. My kid has to go to a rural school. I've got to make sure that she has teachers and a library and facilities, right? They want to go after the Department of Education, which is outrageous. But this is really the important part. People don't understand what the Department of Education does. It doesn't create curriculum. It doesn't write curriculum. That is all done at the state and local levels. All they're doing by dismantling the Department of Education is taking care of the people who hear, discrimination suits, who make sure that there are girls' sports. Now, Fred, I thought they ran on this whole idea of girls' sports, right? The only reason we have girls' sports is because the Department of Education makes schools do that. If you send it back to the states and local schools are going to say, you know what? Girls volleyball is expensive. We're not going to do it. We're still going to have football and baseball and those sort of things, right? We know it's going to impact special education students, gifted students, and we already have segregation academies, but we'll have a lot more when this happens, right? So it's just being at the ground level and explaining to my neighbors. I can walk across the street and talk to my neighbor who is very conservative. She will vote for Democrats. Her husband is solidly a Republican, but I can just visit with them because I know them, right? They know I don't eat babies, right? So we're starting off on a better field than just, sending random folks into rural parts of the country.
Yeah, and that's so important. Well, I love the work you're doing, Blue Missouri. So everybody understands about Blue Missouri. You can find out more about Blue Missouri at bluemissouri.org, I think. But I mean, you had a hell of a cycle though. How much money did you guys distribute to state delegate candidates in Missouri?
I think it was around 230,000. Our Blue Ohio people who, David Pepper runs that one over there. I think they had 320,000. And honestly, like Sherrod Brown lost, but he didn't lose by near the amount that Kamala did. And I think it's because we supported those down ballot candidates who are knocking doors in their own districts, talking to their own neighbors, bringing that Democratic message where people aren't scared to vote for a Democrat.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I love the work. Obviously, I work, just for full disclosure, I'm a part of the family of organizations she just talked about. I run Forgotten Democrats, which is a more national approach. This is our first cycle. We didn't distribute that much money, but about $100,000 went out to some candidates who really needed it for their last few weeks of the campaign. So I love what you do, but Jess, obviously we're friends. I really appreciate you on our very first debut show and bringing your star power to the show. Where can people find you? Where can they find you? And where can they find your Substack, which, by the way, folks, you must subscribe to her Substack.
The View from Rural Missouri is my Substack. I just totally went cold turkey on Twitter, and I walked in and hit deactivate, and I'm completely gone. That was 160,000 people. But I am on Blue Sky for Piper from Missouri. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the places where I talk about the importance of down ballot races. And Fred, I'm so thankful for you. And I'm so glad to see you in this space. And I hope it works out well. It should.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate it. With guests like you, how could it not? So thank you, ma'am. Get back to work. Enjoy those grandkids. And I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you. Talk soon. Bye.
Bye now. Man, what great guest for the first show. Jess is truly another force of nature. That's why I like folks like that. You can find it, I find kind of the same people. They gravitate together. So I really appreciate you guys. So as we close out the show, I just want to talk a little bit about kind of what I touched on with Jess. And one of the things I've been seeing a lot of, especially on the Democratic side of things, obviously, is a lot of folks who are saying, hey, oh, well, they've said, I'm done. I'm done with America. I'm done with voting. We fought our butts off for Kamala and lost. This is what America wants. They can have it. Screw them. And I get it. I get the frustration. I've been there myself. It's easy to just throw your hands up and say, I'm done. So many people worked so hard, especially in my following. organizers like Jess, rural organizers, people knocked thousands of doors. I mean, I know I've seen a couple of names. My friend Charlie Conrad joined the show earlier in the comments. Charlie organized veterans. Oh my God, everywhere. People worked very hard. And in the end, it was about a 107-day campaign. We can look all day about what went wrong, what went right. We will someday. But right now, what worries me is so many people who are a part of our communities, and this is beyond partisan politics, are sort of saying, I'm done. Right? This is what they wanted. I talk a lot about veterans issues. You follow me. I'm sorry. I'm a veteran, and I'm very involved in the community. I work with Vote Vets and other organizations. And we see this a lot. Right now, for example, there's been some really ugly talk about the idea of literally getting rid of the VA was floated in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal that Sean Hannity boosted later. Just yesterday, we saw a piece in The Economist where they talked about that veterans are getting generous benefits that they don't deserve. Essentially, I'm already seeing chatter online about, oh yeah, veterans are lying. They're gaming the system and getting millions of dollars. And the thing is, the average age of a veteran is 58 years old. I'm the average veteran right now. Okay, I'm not a kid. Okay, gray hair. Under 45 is 21%, 45 to 64 is 41, and that 37% of all veterans in America are 65 or older. There's about 15 to 16 million veterans alive in America right now. Not all of them voted, folks. And while a large majority did, so we don't know the numbers yet, maybe 60, 65% did, that doesn't mean the entire community supports Trump. In the end, it doesn't matter. Because this is a democracy. This is a community. The United States of America is for everyone. And if we devolve everything into partisan politics and nothing else matters, that you throw whole communities. And the reason I bring this up is because we hear this a lot in Missouri. I live in Missouri. I see people say, oh, I'll never go to that state. It's red and they're evil. I'm sorry, I got bad news for you. There's some great freaking people living in Missouri. Okay, I'm not one of them, but there are. My neighbors are normal people. Okay, there's lots of normal. It's not some danger zone of evil. Okay, when we condemn entire swaths of our country to being so evil that we don't care about their well-being anymore because of partisan politics, we're no better than our opponents. Think about that for a second. We're no better than our opponents. And the whole point, the reason I do what I do is because I believe the United States of America is a place of hope. I still believe the shining beacon on the hill. And while we are going through a dark time because of Donald Trump and his MAGA movement and others, not all of them are bad either, okay? I hate to break it to you. I've got family members who supported him. I hate that. But in the end, it's what it is. So when they talk about getting the VA and affecting well over 10, 15 million American veterans, throwing them into the healthcare system. Many of those people didn't vote because in their 60s and 70s. My God, our Korean War veterans are in their 90s and they're still living. They probably didn't vote for Trump or have any idea what's going on. But the idea they may be thrown out of their rest homes, thrown out of the benefits they have. Every day I get messages from fellow veterans who are terrified right now because the only thing keeping them out of poverty, keeping them from homelessness, is their veterans benefits. The very benefits that are under attack as of this weekend. I have numerous, I could show you the DMs from guys saying, Fred, if they cut concurrent receipt where I can get my military retirement and my veterans benefits, I'm homeless. They talk about how generous these benefits are. 100% disabled veteran like me is getting about $3,775 a month. That's it. That's their VA benefits that everybody says are too generous. Could you live, pay all of your bills for $3,700 a month? No. But that's what's considered too generous by some people on the right, some people that are floating goddamn articles, okay? So I'm going to fight for that. And if it helps some people who voted for Trump, okay. If it flips some of the people who voted for Trump and they say, holy shit, man, I did not vote to eliminate the Department of Veterans Affairs. That was never in the plan. And believe it or not, I did read Project 2025. And while it does have some really nasty shit for veterans in there, it doesn't talk about eliminating the entire department like has been floated by these idiots like Vivek Ramaswamy. So I'm going to fight. And if I accidentally help MAGA people, fine. Because if we're going to defeat this moment in American history, we're going to have to work together. And it may be just a single issue we care about: abortion, immigrant rights, veterans care. That's what we're going to have to do. So I urge you to find a way to get involved. Write your senators. You heard just today on the show, the reason I had these guests was you heard Steve Schwab say, we need you to write your senators right now. So right now, there's an opportunity to pass a huge, important piece of legislation that'll help our caregivers and the family members who are taking care of veterans and other stuff in there. This is a moment. The Senate has it. They need to go and pass this legislation in a much of all the other things going on right now. Otherwise, it goes away and they start all over again next year. And I've gone through that pain trying to pass legislation. The choice is for us to fight. And if we end up being standing aside, and I say this little piece because okay, I was really hurting the day after the election, like a lot of folks were. I worked very hard for this. And I have a wonderful group. My friend Charlie Conrad runs it. He's hopefully watching the show. And it's veterans group. They get together every Thursday during the campaign. And we just get on a Zoom and we talk about issues, organizing and stuff. And I was really kind of smarting. I'm not going to lie to you, Thursday morning. Had trouble getting out of bed. And Charlie was having his show, his Zoom. So I joined it late. And there was this wonderful group, all older veterans like me, talking about what we just experienced, what we need to do. But throughout, there was this discussion of what we can do. And I was asking them, I said, guys, I asked them for help because I'm not, I'm human. Okay. And I said, hey, what are we going to do? Because this is real danger. And one of the ladies on the show, on the Zoom, she held up a picture and she'd been very involved in the fight against what they did. So if those who don't know, Virginia, for some reason, rolled back a key veteran benefit that allowed veterans who have a 90% or more disability rating, that their children can go to a state school for free, essentially. That's the nutshell of it, including the veteran, if a veteran wants to go to college. And it was a huge benefit. Thousands of veterans retire in Virginia for that very benefit, the idea that their children go to state school for free. It's very generous. I'm not going to lie to you. Anyway, they repealed that. It just buried in the budget, line 10,000 of a budget. It essentially repealed that line item, this incredibly important benefit, education benefit for veterans and their families, military spouses. And Kate Lively, she organized the resistance to it. So during the Zoom, she holds up this picture of the protest they did protest the Capitol. And she's, Fred, that woman standing next to me is a hardcore Republican. And she's holding a sign too, right? And we agreed on this. We agreed that veterans' families shouldn't suffer because somebody decided to scratch a line off the budget. And so it gave me hope right at that moment to say, we can agree on things that are bad and fight them together. Because if we don't, folks, we'll never get this country back. So my last piece for today's show, for our very first show, is that please don't throw your hands up in the air. And please don't dismiss your fellow Americans because of who they vote. I get it. A lot of communities are hurting. The LGBT community, I don't know what to say. It's terrifying. I get it. There's some scary stuff being floated. I'm a veteran. There is some scary stuff being floated. I get it. But it's still America. And we're still the same Americans we were a month ago. And we're going to have to figure out a way to get shit done together and fight the worst things that come down together. Otherwise, what else do we have? So with that, thank you for joining us for our very first On Democracy Sunday show. I hope you enjoyed it. We had a few thousand of you show up, which is so humbling. I truly appreciate your joining us. I appreciate your comments. I've been watching. Thank you for everything. I've seen some friends in there. I've even seen someone I might marry. I'm going to marry. Thank you for everything. Thanks, JJ, my producer extraordinaire, put all this together on a whim, and we're still doing this. We're going to be here every Sunday. We're going to have some really fun panels. You're going to love the panels. I'm just telling you, we're going to have some really interesting interviews. I do intend to invite our Republican opponents to come on and have conversations. They may not be comfortable. We're going to have conversations. But that's the future of the show every Sunday morning right here at 11 Eastern. We'd love you to join us. With that, you can follow us. I would really appreciate if you had this opportunity, go to YouTube, and I really need you to subscribe to the On Democracy Podcast YouTube channel so we can grow this community. And of course, you can find me on my Substack. I can throw it on the screen. My Substack is, On Democracy with FP Wellman. fpwellman.substack.com. There it is on the screen. I'd love you to subscribe to that. That community has exploded and doubled in size in a month. Those are the places we can talk to each other, find ways to organize and keep moving forward. So with that, thank you for joining us this very first show. I cannot wait to see you. I love the fact that you guys are talking to each other in the comments. I love it. We're going to build a community together. We're going to fight for this together. This is On Democracy Sunday. I will see you next week.